Welcome back to STARR, Styling Tales about Radical Responsibility. And today's tale is about a dense context. And a dense context is a woven tapestry of shared experiential distinction, which means as part of a team is you are sharing a similar five-body meaning or understanding, for example, about a word or an experience. So, for example, is the word transformation. A lot of people use that word, and a lot of people mean very different thing when using the word transformation. So I've heard people say, oh, I'm in transformation. And what they mean is, for example, that they're journaling or holding space for themselves for some kind of emotional process to happen. And for me, it's like, that's not what I mean. My context mean with transformation. And when I mean my context in this case is a context that I share with a number of people, then we've researched what does it mean to cause transformation. So in my context, transformation is the ability to cause a liquid state for someone else so that their box can basically disintegrate to some degree for their being to unfold and for them to be able to create different results because of their liquid state. They have changed their shape in relationship to the universe. So those are very different meaning of what, or really five-body experience of what somebody means when they say transformation. And so what I've experienced is basically the looser your context is. So that means you haven't investigated the purpose of the meaning behind your word, the purpose of your action. How does your context, your team works in relationship to the world, to its value, to its purpose? So the looser your context is, basically it means everybody can come and play in that, in your team, no matter what degree or quality or research they have done in terms of, let's say, their inner structure and their ability to create impact in the outside world. So what happens in a very loose context is the whole team and ability to create basically diminishes to the lowest common denominator. And the way that it shows up, and maybe you've experienced this, is you're in a team meeting and the person who has the least matrix, let's say, the person who has not grown up, who has not gone through certain kind of quality initiation or healing, is they get to control the meeting with their basically mostly survival, grip, defensive-oriented reactivity. And what happens is the genius of the people who have done the work, who have, let's say, cooked themselves or initiated themselves in some reason, has no space to unfold because the space is filled with this lowest common denominator, which is survival and reactivity. So I got this idea of a dense context when I traveled to Japan and got to meet edge workers in Japan, or Japanese edge workers, a couple years ago. And they could speak English and obviously they could speak Japanese. And I joined a meeting when they spoke Japanese, and afterwards we had a debrief in English. And what they said is they could feel the difference of their communication and their ability to access their genius and their let's say their potential when they spoke Japanese, which is a very dense context because for a few reasons. One, it's an island. And let's say the foundation of Japan started at least 1,500 years ago, and also during the 200 years of globalization in the 1600s and afterwards, they completely closed their borders. So they've developed a relationship to the world, a mythology, a meaning of words that comes from traditions and religion and just shared experience, that when they say one word, there is a whole universe of experiential reality that comes with it that is shared. And so they experience when they speak English, first they don't have that experience, like that experiential world behind each word, but also they do not share the meaning of their words with other English speakers. And so that is something that is interesting to me, because there's this sort of assumption is because, for example, I speak English, or I'm white, or I was born in Europe, or my parents are European or certain social class, people immediately assume that I'm sharing their context, because there's this lack of clarity of pockets of people can create extremely dense context that has, huge power. So what I mean by, where does this come from? Like, how can you have a dense context? Well, you don't need to have like 1,500 years of shared history, because it is possible to create a dense context with this tool, this skill called context deepening. So context deepening means sharpening. It means exploring. It means taking apart, like unraveling the mystery of your context. So, for example, in my case, I share a trainer context in radical responsibility with other possibility management trainers. And I can give you, hundreds of examples of how, even in the last decade, the context of such basic distinction of possibility management have been evolved just from us trainers and other people, but in this case, I'm talking about the trainers, have stayed at the edge so that the next level of clarity and the context could reveal itself more to us as we are building matrix. So this is context deepening, is staying at the edge in connection with your other teammates, and together exploring refining, discerning more, I would say refined, clear distinction. That's context deepening. I can give you an example, which is, for example, about giving your center away, which is a map that comes from Expand the Box. That's such a basic map, because if you don't have your center, you don't have access to any of the other tools from possibility management. So when, let's say 10 years ago, this idea of giving your center away was for the purpose of, well, I'm giving my center away so that I can be safe. Like, it's a safety mechanism. It's the box way of preventing you taking responsibility. But a few weeks ago in the Women Over Expanded, Vera and I discovered this whole other layer of giving your center away, which is you give your center away, you expect the other person to take care of you, and if they don't take care of you, then what you feel is resentment, and you have then permission to hate them and take revenge. So actually the whole setup of giving your center away is a gremlin game to be able to hate those people that you project authority figure on. But it also comes, like a few days ago, this discovery of the extent of your rescuing is proportional to your resentment. And rescuing is giving your center away to a fantasy world that if you do something for somebody, and you give your center away also to them, they will behave in a certain way. And if you're rescuing and you're not sensing how much resentment and hatred you have for other people, is a way that you're trying to numb yourself and justify your, your strategy of rescuing other people. I'll make a STARR about the rescuing. But, and now I have this clarity, and the trainers have this clarity together, that when somebody says, I'm giving my center away, it is not just a box technology for safety. Oh, they're doing their best to just be safe. They didn't have any other option, or they don't have any other option. But it's also a gremlin strategy for hatred and revenge. And it's also a way to justify rescuing. Like, it's a low drama, it's an offer for low drama, and ultimately for war. But it's really, so now it's all of that. And I'm sure new layers of this new layers of this context about giving your center away will unfold themselves when we need it. And I'm talking about all this, and like what I find amazing is that, and I'm sure you've had this experience of, like, for example, seeing a couple that really authentically love each other and they have a way of communicating where maybe you don't quite understand what they're saying to each other, but they do. Or maybe you've seen like movies where teams of superhero or people work in this such seamless way where they, again, barely need to communicate for their intention and instinct to work together. And maybe you've had an experience like that, like building a physical building or cooking a meal with somebody where this flow is happening. And I think this flow, my experience, is that this flow comes from the density of your shared context. And you can imagine, it's sort of like this dense context is this net that catches everybody into this shared, I don't like this word, like shared understanding, but more it's like a shared relationship to the world. It's also, you can see it like as a sail that catches the wind of transformation, the sail being more and more tight the denser the context is, or this trampoline that you can really bounce on to take the next leap. But like one of the qualities that I have found in when I have shared dense context with other people is this really smooth, so beautiful, so nourishing, loving, and sensual way of radically relating with each other. There's no misunderstanding, or if there is, it is just a doorway to more exploration. If there's emotional reactivity, it's not used for separation, but it's used for healing. So it's just the dense context is this radical relating between people, but also with the archetypal forces, because there's a certain level of integrity and clarity and accountability and also this research, this love for the research that the archetypal forces say, okay, I can work with this because it's not going to be destroyed by the first person who thinks differently. And you can tell, and I think people can tell that possibility management in some degree it's a dense context that is very discerning, and the guardians and the people, the possibilitators are very discerning about, will what you bringing somebody maybe from a different context and different culture, what you bringing to our culture, will it feed us? Like, is it part of our feast? Is the distinction, the experience, the process that you're bringing, does it matches the quality that we have developed with each other, or is it just basically McDonald's? It's just fast food. It's an unresearched way to see the world, or it's like a child level responsibility. It's a rescuing strategy, or whatever it is. It's like it's not like high-end luxury 5-star food that we can bring onto our table. So, it sort of brings up the question of, when you've developed a very dense context with other people, how do you bring new people into that context? Because the dense context is not meant to be sort of closed onto itself and create sort of an elite group. It's meant to do a certain kind of research, a certain kind of, also having access to a certain kind of radical relating that any research from any person in the team impacts directly everybody else and allows them to create more loving creation, more responsible results. So there's a huge leverage that happens with a dense context. It's like, one of the metaphor, the idea you can have is like, how sharp is the knife with which you're cutting? So a dull knife can still cut, but it's basically messy and ineffective. You start having a dense context, and every cut, like every piece of clarity, opens door for a huge amount of love and collaboration and possibility. So the idea is to be able to bring people in if they have resonance. And so I'm going to say it the other way is, let's say you've seen a team that has a dense context and you're attracted by this team and you don't know how you're going to get in. Like, how are you going to have that level of radical relating that these people have with each other? Well, the thing is, it's like you first need to check that you have resonance, not just with who those people are, but also what the results they're creating. So this is not a personality cult where it's like, oh, I love this person, so I want to be in this dense context. No, it's about who are they with each other, and therefore what can their team create, or what are they sourcing? What is the values, the quality that they're radiating from their team? So if you have that level of resonance, basically what might happen to you is that you will need to drop baggage to enter, a brighter, sharper, clearer, more accountable, more integrous, more loving, also more close, more intimate relationship with these people. So part of your job is to participate in the space that they're holding, and notice, basically work with the baggage that comes into the space, into the relationship with them. What I've seen is when I've wanted to come into a dense context, in this case, possibility management, or I've seen people wanting to come into a dense context, for example, the trainer path, to become a possibility management trainer, the first thing they have is, well, I don't know if I'm just giving my center away to this dense context, or I'm going through this liquid state of dropping baggage. And especially in regards to becoming an expand the box trainer, people say, oh, but I don't want to be a copy of like Clinton or you, Anne-Chloé. Like, I want to have the freedom to be who I am. And what they're saying and what they're not noticing is that they're attracted by this dense context, but there's a fear that they're not able to keep their center. So to enter a dense context, if you give your center away, you can no longer enter the dense context, because the dense context is sharply, in terms of radical responsibility, I'm going to say, is sharply, it's so clear and noticing of like, you are giving your center away right now, so you cannot participate. You cannot actually radically relate with us. What is happening is you're in a survival strategy. So I'm going to make a star about the difference between giving your center away to a context of work, a context of healing, and keeping your authority even in a liquid state. But that's what I've noticed. The last thing I would say is when people have entered dense context, it could take them up to 2 years to be able to move at source. So to become a source of the research and the deepening of the dense context. Cool. I want to share one more thing, is that I'm excited about this dense context because it's sort of a response, I would say, or healing of this, how do you call that? Like this one culture, like this one Western American patriarchal capitalist empire culture that's really taking over the world, and that leaves people completely powerless because they're not at source of their own culture and their own context. So if we're moving out of that, what would make sense for Nano Nation is a group of, let's say, between like 7 and 70 people, of people who share a dense context with a clear research. And so when somebody says, hey, I want to do this healing about particular kind of womanhood, or I want to learn to reclaim my center, I want to build skills for agency, I want to learn how to build a house with like a mud house, or I want to learn how to create an orchard, that each Nano Nation with this dense context have unfolded the mystery of their specialty. So this turns me on. See you next time.